Whether it's about your parents or becoming a parent, we got you covered.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. A Safe Haven Foundation. Housing is healthcare. And Children's Learning Place. Excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Dr. Daft Terry and the team at Art of Modern Dentistry, Mazda, Cellular Intelligence, and Chicago Andrea Creative.
Today, we are talking parenting. Whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a parent yourself, or thinking back to your own childhood, we've got you covered. From allergies to gay parenting, we're covering it all. Parenting 101 starts right now.
You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show.
Elizabeth Diffin is the senior editor of Chicago Parent Magazine. This magazine is a resource that parents turn to for monthly activities, expert stories, and more. She's here today to explain Parenting 101 and what she's discovered through the years. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we have you on as our expert because Chicago Parent Magazine, it really is a go-to source for parents. You talk a lot about hot topics.
Yeah.
What are some of the ones that are really trending these days?
Well, there are certain things that are sort of evergreen that we always know is going to start conversations. Things like breastfeeding, circumcision, always a hot topic. Working, outside the home versus staying at home with your kids. It's always a hard decision. Bullying in schools, all kinds of things. Parents are always have a lot of decisions that they're making and, have to consider different sides of things. So we have people asking, our experts for all the different sides.
So how do you feature that? Because there are so many ways that people parent. How do you politely say, okay, we're not bashing people. We're actually going to feature both sides of the topic?
Yeah, I think that usually comes down to where we feature qualified experts who may be on both sides of an issue. And sort of present each side fully. So we don't sort of give one of them less, coverage or whatever.
Equal.
Yes,
I like that.
Exactly. Equal. And really, unless it's an issue where kids' lives are at risk or that they'd be in danger, we really like to present, both sides of things, let parents make their own choices and figure out what's best for them and their kids.
So with some of the hot topics, I know you just mentioned working from home or working out of the home.
Yeah.
What did you discover with that?
Really that you have to do what works for you. It's hard, any of these things are hard. It's hard to be a stay-at-home parent because isolation can set in or, judgment from other parents, things like that. But also the opposite is true as well. Working outside the home, you face judgment as well. You sometimes miss your children's milestones or, just have to find a way to balance all those different things. So you just have to sort of decide what works for you, what you need, financially, things like that. Those are real things that people have to, address.
I've heard the saying, you do you and do it well. And I think that's really good for parents to take away.
Yeah, and that's absolutely our position at Chicago Parent is just advocating for parents to do what works best for them, for their child. Parents know their children the best, how they're going to thrive, what they need, and how your family works. So you just can't let those outside voices influence your decisions.
I like that because there are so many times that you just can have all those ancillary voices weighing in, and it's really, you got to do what's best for your family.
Absolutely.
So food allergies, this is a big thing. Being a parent, you all of a sudden have to worry about what's around your kids. What have y'all discovered through that?
It's interesting because until food allergies have affected your family or someone you know really well, it's not something people think about, I don't, on a regular basis. And then sometimes people can be resentful or, why does my kid have to not have a peanut butter sandwich because of your kid? But, really we're all in this together and you have to look out for other people as well. And so I think we've found that you just have to, be proactive, listen to what the doctors have to say, about when to introduce different foods, and
we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking out for the neighbor. Well, Chicago Parent Magazine is really doing that. It's a way to get all these parents, even if you're not a parent and thinking about parenting, to find out more about what's going on with kids and motherhood and fatherhood, all of it. Well, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
What are the tricks of the trade when it comes to parenting? That's what we wanted to find out from you. Let's take a look at this week's viewer's voice.
The trick of the trade when it comes to parenting is there are no tricks. You just try to keep it together and do the best you can every day and give that child unconditional love and understand that you are human and you are going to make mistakes, and just hope they forgive you and come out normal in the end.
Oh man, you're always in charge and you always hold more information than you really believe. They're so young and they're so developing that you have that little bit of information card where you can say, because I know. Or you can just be like, yeah, go clean your room because I said so.
Incentive versus punishment. And so if we remember that sometimes if we motivate people, our children, to do different things and encourage them, that sometimes that goes a lot further than punishment.
The best thing I could say is just remember that you're human, and to always be honest with your kids, and to try to always tell them the right thing. My dad used to say, Larry, sometimes they're not going to listen to you. Most of the time they're not going to listen to you, but you always have to continue to tell them the right thing to do, because there's going to come a time in their life when it clicks. And if you stop telling them the right thing to do, it'll never click for them. So always be honest and tell them the right thing to do.
Speaking truth, being honest with your kids. If you think something's going on, it probably is, and just asking them, not like trying to go behind or get in their business. Just speaking truth to your kids. It's amazing because when you speak the truth, you get the truth back.
I am currently not a parent, but I have a lot of a great niece and nephew, and for me, it's just, again, you want to be there always for them, want to make sure that they're fully loved, make sure that they know that you support them in everything that they do, and you just want to guide them and protect them. Of course, let them kind of go off on their own a little bit so they can figure stuff out, but I always say tough love. I think that's the one important thing when it comes to parenting.
Our next guest met his husband back in 2007. Together, they were united in a civil union ceremony just 4 years later. In lieu of gifts for their ceremony, they started an adoption fund. A few years later, they officially got on the adoption list with the Cradle, and in 2015, got the call that they were becoming parents. Let's welcome out Maya and her father, Greg. Welcome to the show, Greg and Maya.
Oh, thank you for having us.
So you went through the adoption process with your husband to get Maya. Tell us what that journey was like.
Well, it was a 3.5-year journey. We started, our first year was classes, it was paperwork, it was home visits, and then for 2.5 years, we were invited into the stories of 26 women in the request for placements, and Maya was our 26th request for placement after 3.5 years, but it was well worth the wait.
Were you worried that someone or some family might look at you and say like, oh, they aren't a right fit? Like, did you feel like you were under this scrutiny when you were going through it?
I think at the beginning of all the process, we weren't thinking that way, but when you had that many requests for placements, it did become one of those things where like, well, what could we be presenting differently, or, are we fit for this, and things of that nature. So it was a concern that did come up.
Well, an adoption is one of those things that when you make that decision, you're ready to get a kid. What was the wait like?
It was difficult, but in the process, it made us really reflect on what we wanted to do as parents. It really made us focus in on our relationship, which just makes us stronger parents in the end for Maya. So at times it was frustrating, but at times it was good to go through that process with Dave.
When you got the call that Maya was waiting for you, what was that like?
it was surreal. That morning we had actually RFP number 25 was they said that the parent did not choose us, and then they said at noon, what about this RFP? And then at 10:56 p.m. that night, after we sent a thing to our counselor at 10 o'clock, she said, well, can I give you a call? So 10:56 at night, she gives us a call. It's a Wednesday night. Both of us have to get up for work the next day, but we did not sleep very much that night because
I imagine.
Yeah, because they were telling us she's up in the nursery, she's waiting for you.
Oh my goodness. And you were just like any parent with that, remembering those times
Mm-hmm.
of birth and when you got the call. And
Uh-huh.
what a special moment to actually realize, okay, we are officially going to be parents. And here comes Maya's other daddy. Maya, thanks for joining us. We're going to keep this conversation going with your dad. Bye. She is so cute.
Thank you.
So what was one of the biggest struggles? Because people are watching that probably either thought about adoption or maybe know someone that's going through adoption. What is one of the biggest struggles you faced?
Probably one of the biggest struggles was the wait that we had over those 3.5 years. During that time, we actually were selected at one point, and because things just didn't work out, there was a change of heart at the very last minute. And so it really caused us to see who our closest circle of friends were, and it really made us turn to each other as a partnership, which just better prepares us for Maya.
Oh my goodness. And that has to be heart-wrenching because once you find out you're becoming a parent, that must be so difficult to then have that taken back. But it all worked out in the end. What is it like, real quick, with an open adoption, having to be open? Years past, people liked it closed, but now everything's kind of opening up. Is that a good thing?
Going into the process, I wanted an open adoption. Coming from education, that's just kind of, I see the benefits in it. And the Cradle, the agency we went through, really prepares you for open adoptions. Unfortunately, we don't have an open adoption with Maya's mom, but all of our information is on file up at the Cradle so that if she wants to reconnect, she can.
And that way you can find out about medical history. And then also so Maya could potentially learn more about herself.
Correct.
And then last but not least, before you go, I want to mention that Maya has her birth name given to her.
Yes.
Her other dad's last name is her middle name, and yours last name.
Yes.
So it just encompasses this whole journey.
It's all of us.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having us.
Next up, we have America's favorite mom, Shay Vaughn, mother to the one and only Vince Vaughn, actor and performer, here to tell us about how to help our kids reach for their dreams, yet stay grounded.
Welcome to the show, Shay. What was it like raising a star?
Well, I have 3 children. I don't just have, Vince. I have Victoria, Valerie, and Vince, and I really treat them all the same, even though one might be in front of a camera and people know him more than they do my daughters. To me, they're just, they're my kids. They're the heartbeat of my life. And, in raising kids and just in general, I was that mom that I was so young, I felt like we grew up together. And I used to read books because I really didn't know what I was doing. And whatever it said, that's what I tried. And then when that didn't work, I'd read something else that said, try something else. So I was like, my kids were very confused growing up about what the rules were. But, at the end of the day, what really counts is that you really love them with all your heart and that you don't try to change who they are, because every single one of them has, different personalities. And sometimes you just kind of wonder, where did that one come from, or where did that act come from, or something that they're doing, or something that they love that doesn't even have anything to do with what you did as a kid. And I think the importance is to really encourage them to be themselves, to love themselves as who they are. They're gifts that God gave us, that little jewels that came into our lives that are the most memorable and the best, years of your life, even though you want to pull your hair out, right?
So let's talk about little baby Vince Vaughn. When he was a kid, did he know he wanted to be an actor? And did you say, okay, son, you can do it?
He was always entertaining. He always had great charisma. He was just a good kid. He gave with both hands. If I sent him outside with a cookie, he'd look at me and say, no, Mom, there's more kids outside. I need the box.
That's awesome.
He was just that kind of kid. Definitely, as he got up, got older, he really took a liking to acting and performing. But I don't know that the light bulb actually went on that, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a movie star.
Oh.
I think everything is a process. But certainly by the time he got out of high school, he definitely wanted to come to LA, and he definitely wanted to see what he could do with the talent that he had. And, you know, one of the things that I want to share, too, is that there's a lot of kids out there with a lot of talent. And I think that the difference between those that end up really making it is that they're like a dog with a bone. They want it so bad that they're going to do everything that they possibly can to make that happen.
That is so true. So raising 3 kids, and like you said in the first part, being uniquely different, how did you encourage, as a mother, how did you encourage them to all do their thing and not get them, like you said, you love all of them equally. How did you balance all that?
Just on a day-to-day basis, one foot in front of the other every day and just moving in the right direction, I think, and trying to take care of the things that need to be taken care of at the time when they actually happen with each one of the kids. We're a very, very close family. The kids all work together, play together. I think that those things are things that, as I was growing up, my mom was my best friend. Before she passed away, she lived with me for 17 years. And I think that a lot of her knowledge and a lot of her mentoring really just kind of rubbed off on me. And I could see what the benefits of just giving love and care, but discipline too. I mean, there was like, no, you can't do that sometimes. And it was really because I think kids today are really looking for direction. And I think one of the ways that we give good direction is doing it from the heart for all the right reasons, but putting boundaries that they have to, abide by, because I think that the world isn't, going to fix it for them. So it's going to hit them in the face sooner or later. And I think that learning certain skills at home is a better place to really learn it around people that love you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Blessings to everyone.
Family dynamics can be tough, and the movie Fences shines light on this issue. It's a story about a man who struggles with marriage and fatherhood. We sat down with the actors that played his son and best friend in the movie to find out how different family dynamics work.
Now, this movie was set in the 50s. Is there some universal theme that is played out today?
Absolutely. Family is the most obvious. We all have family, and we all have moments where we don't get along or there's some sort of miscommunication among us. So I think it's definitely a theme that everybody can relate to, for sure.
Can it play out just beyond family too, just kind of like breaking barriers? Is there a lot of that going out in the world today?
I think so. I think there's a little bit of those elements in this film, and there's something that everyone can relate to in Fences, I think.
And then Stephen, your characters repeat these wonderful sayings. Is it you think the outsider looking in is a good perspective, and that's kind of how your character was able to have so much insight?
Well, Bono is everything but an outsider. In terms of he's just been welcomed in. He's like extended family, we say in the culture, extended family. And I've known him for years, and I knew when the kids were born. And so, yeah, he's in. But a lot of the wisdom he's gotten from Troy himself. He just has to give it back to him. In a time, sometimes our mentors, if you really know them for a long time, you get to a place that you can pay them back.
So it really was your inside relationship that helped impact this family.
Exactly, because everybody in this family and extended family, they all love each other. So consequently, they're able to hurt each other quite deeply.
Wow. Okay, and then Jovan, how did your relationship with your own father impact your role in this movie?
Just informed me. It formed, it reminded me of how foolish I probably was when I was in high school, and how much I didn't necessarily take his advice right away, but I could definitely see how life experience can change your, your insight on things and help you look at things from a broader perspective.
Was it a full circle moment at the end for your character whenever you came back for the funeral?
I think so. I think it was, definitely his moment of epiphany, trying to understand what his father had in mind for him in raising him, and I think he wouldn't have been able to look at those moments of him being raised with an open mind if he hadn't left. I think it was important for Corey to travel the world and to see different things and meet different people for him to be able to come back and accept, the events of his life as well as Troy's.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
Last but not least, we have Sylvia Friedman, an author who's discovered how parenting for everyone looks different and the importance of raising kids that can be true to themselves. Welcome to the show, Sylvia.
Thank you.
So we've covered a lot on parenting today. We've done family dynamics from the show Fences to different types of parenting, even to adoption, a lot of different topics. But you wrote a book, The Stars in Your Family. I actually have it right here. And it's full of raising your kids to who they're supposed to be.
Well, with the aid of astrology, knowing who you're raising.
What does that mean? Because I'm sure some of our viewers might be like, I have no idea. Astrology sounds a little woo-hoo. What is that?
Astrology is your birthday, the time of your birth, the place of your birth. And actually, if you're going to describe all the planets and where all the planets sit and all that, it becomes confusing for the layperson.
The astrology part is whenever they're born into a certain type of attitude is what it is?
Well, you would see the personality. I mean, if you're dealing with someone, there are different elements also, and if you're dealing with, say, fire signs, which would be Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, you know that you're not dealing with a child that doesn't have their own mind. And so you have to be careful about pushing them. You have to make them feel that they know what they're doing.
How did you discover that this actually works?
Well, I studied astrology. I've been in it for 30 years. And I was fascinated. First of all, I believe very strongly that parents have to know their kids. And it's harmful if indeed parents don't know who they're raising.
And what do you mean by know your kids? Break that down for us.
Well, when you read my book or whenever you know an astrological sign, you know whether they're born practical, you know whether they're born logical, you know whether they're born emotional. So if you're going to have a logical child, you have to be very careful about coming on too strong.
So your book is kind of a breakdown for no matter what you're born into, learning how to work with that. Because
Exactly.
It's not doomsday if you're born and your kid might be a conflicting sign, right?
It's not doomsday. It just is a little easier if they're not. But I always say, if you know who you raise, you will have a loving relationship. You try to raise your kids as to who you think they should be, that's when the problem occurs. So if you know a child has a certain mindset and you nurture that mindset, they're with you. See, children have a problem feeling good enough. And if a parent starts to boss them around, if a parent starts telling them what to do all the time, did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? They start becoming very insecure and they never think they're good enough and they're always wanting to be perfect.
That's one of the things that I'm hearing a lot is so many attitudes in your adult life come through as a child. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
You do?
Absolutely. And since I know astrology, I know certain people are born a certain way and those traits are there.
And you're a life coach as well. And
I am.
with that, when kids are born, they have on these different, they are their own person. And as parents, do you feel like sometimes we try to push who we are onto our kids?
Definitely.
So how do we
Definitely.
work through that not to do that?
Well, the unfortunate part is the parents don't often know that. And so and that's why I feel what I've written is valuable and I coach. It's very valuable because parents can be very dominant. They can be very controlling and the children don't know how to respond to that.
Right.
Let them be who they are.
Love that.
And what do you think? How do you feel? What makes you happy? And I know that primarily in my life, that's the way I did it. I raised them as to who they were. Now, I'm a strong mom, so I have to understand.
You think?
I think And being a strong mom, you have to be careful because you don't want them to, think you're a tough act to follow. Because each person is wonderful as to who they are. And that's my big belief.
That is good. Raising kids to who they're supposed to be. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for coming on.
My pleasure.
Today, we've discovered a lot about parenting. It's a tough job, but one of the most rewarding ones out there. For more information on today's show, visit WhitneyReynolds.com.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. A Safe Haven Foundation. Housing is healthcare. And Children's Learning Place. Excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Dr. Daft Terry and the team at Art of Modern Dentistry, Mazda, Cellular Intelligence, and Chicago Andrea Creative.